Fatal mistake number one is all about an unhealthy fixation and excessive reliance on the revenue or the vanity line. Why do business owners fall into this trap of getting hung up on the vanity line, the revenue line of their business?
I think because it's easy to measure. So they can measure revenue, and they can count how many invoices have sent out, and therefore they can work out what's due in. But the reality is, right, as we all know, many times you and I have spoken about this. Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is king. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between revenue and profitability and cash and having cash in the business. So I think what the report does in that first fatal mistake is do not get fooled by one number alone. Running a business needs a series of different measures, not one measure. That one measure should never be turnover. And I think in the report, you talk brilliantly about a big organization, British Leyland at the time, turning over hundreds of millions. So their turnover was huge. Yeah, they made a £10 million loss.
Yeah.
So, just sitting there going, look at me, I've done lots of work. Yeah, but you've made no money. And actually, you're now going to have to go to a bank and finance and pay interest or put your house on the line. So actually, do not just look at one number in business alone. You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't have one item on the menu, would you, if you were running a restaurant? So therefore, why would you look at one number in business?
Yeah. So what's key in this first fatal mistake is the correlation between your revenue. And yes, you need to get revenue through the front door of your business, but it's got to be then quickly your focus turns to how do you make sure that it is profitable revenue that you're driving through the front door? And Chris, that comes to the question for me that when you look at early stage businesses, one of the traps that they fall into is once you've got your value proposition, you go to market, it's almost like you're happy to take any kind of customer. It doesn't matter whether they're a good customer or a bad customer. How do you get business owners to understand and really start to think early on in their business journey about what the right profile of customer, I call it what's your ideal dot and your ideal profile of customer looks like? How important is that at an early stage in your business journey, not learning the lessons the hard way, which you and I have seen so many business leaders do?
Well, I always ask business leaders, do they understand the cost to serve? So if it's a business person that gives time and expertise, then would you do 8 hours for £50? No, because I could go and do something else to earn £50. You might say to a customer, I'll give you an hour of my time. What if that customer then pays you for an hour, but actually keeps phoning you up every single day afterwards, asking you questions, consuming your time, for which you pay no fee? So ultimately, you look at that. Secondly, when I run a business where there's things I have to buy to repackage and sell, actually, I know straight away that there will be price increases. I get texts around March and April off lots of providers for my life and my business that tell me their prices are going up by, CPI or retail price index. Yeah, I meet lots of customers, clients that don't put their prices up, yet their cost base is going up. So why wouldn't you start to take a look the cost to serve against the income you generate? Because if you're spending lots of time and giving away lots of materials, then it's no wonder you don't make a profit. And if that continues, it's no wonder you become one of the statistics that says within 12, 24, or 36 months, you're going to be out of business. And your specialism, that's a really good specialism, hasn't worked. Not because you can't cook or you can't drive a cab. It's because you don't know how to run a business.
Yeah, so picking up on what Chris and I are talking about there, being really clear and identifying early on what a great customer looks like for your business is really important. And the simplest way to do this is look at the customers who pay the bills on time. They don't moan about the price that they're paying. They consume multiple products and services that you provide, and of course they pay the bills on time. Once you start to model what a good customer looks like, you want to take that profile of that customer, and then you get really focused in your marketing activity to attract more of those customers. But I can't stress enough in the early stages, getting the profile of customer right is so important. The number of businesses I work with that over time are then having to cull customers because in the early days they've just taken on the wrong profile of customer.
And there's a great book, Royston, called The Street Corner Strategy by Robert E. Hall. And in it, he talks about the concept of service hungry customers that don't want to pay you for the service you give, And actually, they consume a lot of your time
Yeah.
and a lot of your wisdom and expertise. That means you don't have the time to go and spend it with customers who are prepared to pay on time, prepared to give you multiple orders. So if you are just dealing with one-off transaction customers, then you run the risk of not building relationships. And I find that the customers that do repeat business and actually buy more from you over a period of time are the ones where you're able to establish a really good relationship. But these are the ones you can spot because often they'll be entrepreneurs, they'll be the ones who do understand what the fatal mistakes are, and actually aligning yourself with those types of customers are better than people who just want transactions from you because
Yeah.
it'll always be a race to the bottom about price. And the minute you start discounting, the question I always have is where does it stop? If
Yeah.
you believe you offer value for money, then you should stick with your value proposition rather than reduce the price because your costs tend not to reduce, but your revenue does. Again, that's why you start making losses rather than profits.
Chris, what's your view in terms of one of the things I talk about in that fatal mistake number one is about how you create sticky, recurring annuity revenue lines. And I've always been fascinated with, like the model of Vodafone or where you are doing monthly subscriptions and you are locked in. A lot of the businesses that I've run it over the years are, project based and so forth, which is hard work when you wake up on the 1st of January and 80 or 90% of your revenue you've got to generate in year. So,
Yeah.
in your experience of 4 years in business, how do you really work with clients to really drive those recurring annuity revenue streams?
And we tell stories. If you look at television, television used to be subscription free terrestrial TV. And then Sky come along and they put a paywall up, and suddenly you start paying for, let's say, Sky Sports, which I did. Sky then were very, very clever. Not only have they got me paying for sport, they'll then say, do you have more than one television in your house? And if so, do you want multi-room? And I went, oh, that's a good idea. Actually, if I'm in the kitchen, I can watch the match in the kitchen while I'm cooking or doing something else. So I pay multi-room, that's £5, and that goes onto my bill. And then they'll say, what's your favourite football team? And Sky had a product called a Sky season ticket. And actually, if you paid them £90 a year, you could actually watch your team more often than their normal sporting schedule. As a result of that, they took some money off me. Then they turned around and said, oh, we're moving into broadband. Would you like broadband? So actually talking about bundling your products and services and allow customers to have access that for a monthly fee means that when you wake up on the 1st of January, actually your bank account's really healthy.
Yeah.
And this isn't about sort of giving customers products they don't want. This is about looking at a customer lifestyle and saying, who else is providing them with a service I can provide? And therefore, I talk to the customer about the concept of bundling. It saves them time. They only have to deal with one organization. So it's one phone call rather than I get my mortgage from this company, my house insurance from this company, my bank account from that company, my savings account for that company. Actually, it's a case of I'll offer you everything and you just pay me a monthly subscription. And as a result of that, the good news is you're happy, I'm happy. And I then have guaranteed revenue on the 1st of every month. That's when I claim the direct debit. So I think it's really smart thinking about the concept of bundling in exchange for a fee.
Yeah, and what I'd really urge our listeners is to think about their business model and their service lines that they've got, and where is your opportunity to create those recurring, sticky annuity revenue lines. Lots of businesses have done it. You think about dentistry, for example. How many people actually pay now a monthly subscription of £15, £20 for, yeah. How much you pay a month, Chris, out of interest?
Well, I've got a family package, so it's close to £100 a month.
Brilliant. Well, that's you, Elaine, and the two kids, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, brilliant. So, but what that does is it covers your annual checkup and your annual clean. But
yeah,
what great for the dentistry during the pandemic when suddenly, they had 50% of their customers on a regular monthly direct debit, what difference did that make for them? Actually, that was the difference between surviving or dying during the pandemic.
But and let's remember what the dentist does, right? It's not just a money play. I said earlier, it's about understanding the value proposition. So my dentist allows me to visit the hygienist 4 times a year.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that for people who don't have a monthly subscription. My dentist gives a guarantee, as somebody who pays a monthly subscription to the dentist, in the event of emergency, they will see me within 72 hours. And only recently, I crunched on something and my tooth fell apart, and that was the Tuesday. By 4:15 on the Thursday, I was having my tooth fixed by my dentist. And that is the value proposition that I turn around and say, because 'cause I'm busy, the fact that they can accommodate me within a 72-hour timeline in the event of emergency, and when your tooth hurts, it bloody hurts. I sit there and say, I'm prepared to sign up for a monthly deal rather than an ad hoc deal because I'm getting value, they're getting value. And I think businesses should really think about what is the win-win? What is it you can give that will enable people to think paying you monthly on a recurring revenue model is good for everybody?
Yeah, I love it. But you've got to have a differentiated proposition for those loyal customers who are paying you on that monthly recurring annuity that differentiates from the mainstream customer.
And one of the best ways to find out what your customers want is ask them
Yeah.
what
What they value.
what they value. What is it in the current proposition what are the top 3 things that you really value? Is there anything I'm currently not offering that would mean that you were more sticky, or you would do more business with me? That, funnily enough, customers are prepared to tell you what they want
Yeah.
more than ever before. So my tip is always ask your customers what it is they want from your relationship, because that's this. You talk about silent erosion in the Fatal Mistakes book, and a lot of people don't tell you; they just leave, and they don't. And therefore, if you don't track your monthly spend, a client monthly spend or a client annual spend, well, often what they might do is just go elsewhere and not tell you. As a
Yeah.
result of that, you still got the records. You still, if you were a bank, you'd still have the bank account. You still be producing the cost, but getting none of the revenue. So one of the key things I always track is a customer loyalty measure, which is, are they still doing business with me? And what is the spend that they're still doing? And is it up? Is it the same or is it down? If it's down, I'm more likely to phone up and say, I've noticed you're doing less business with me, my company. Is there a reason why? And as a result of that, they might tell me that I'm not doing it, or some of my colleagues are not doing something. As a result of that, I'd rather know and fix it than not know and just see a reduction in profitability, because my costs won't change necessarily, but my revenue does. As a result of that, that hits the profit line.